Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over all the Tarkir Dragonstorm spoilers that we have so far. The official spoiler season is just around the corner and the set is just around the corner as well to come out. And there's some pretty sweet cards we've already gotten from Tarkir Dragonstorm. Some pretty strong, powerful synergies, some combo cards I think that are going to be really good. So I'm pretty excited and hyped for this set. Let's see what we got starting off with Smile at Death, which is a 5 mana white enchantment. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 2 target creature cards of power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures. So note this says power 2 or less, not mana cost 2 or less. So you can get a ton of mana cost value from this effect here. Now, obviously, the downside of this card is that you play it doesn't really do anything the turn it comes to play. You have to wait till you upkeep. But the power return on this is pretty strong, I would say, potentially. If you build your deck right and you've set it up right, you can get a lot of pretty powerful cards back from the graveyard. Pretty nice with Violent Tumor, too, because this card sets up your graveyard already, and it is a creature with 2 power or less that you can continually bring back. Say you block with it, dies, you play this the next turn, you bring it back, and the thing that it search to put into your graveyard. And what would you want to search, or what are the things you want to put in the graveyard? Well, there's cards like a 3-fold Thunderhulk, which have 0 power essentially, but come into play with 3+1/+1 counters on it and make a bunch of tokens. So you're getting like 7 mana worth of power, worth of value from that. The Riptide Gear Hulk, I think, is really good too. Just to continually replay over and over again. It could die and then comes back. You get the effect again. Cloud Blazer, also pretty nice. And these all coming into play with +1/+1 counters on it. And it's up to 2 of these. So if you have 2 of them in your graveyard, you're getting both back. So you could get potentially like 10 mana versus each turn of creatures back from your graveyard into play with additional +1/+1 counters on them. So I think the effect here is quite strong and powerful. You can build your deck around it. I mean, you obviously would need to. You could put this in, say, like a deck with smaller creatures, and this is kind of your top end, and as a way to just bring those back every turn. I think that could be okay too. Um, the problem again is that the turn you play it, you kind of have to take that turn off, and then the following turns you get a ton of value coming back. So the effect is very powerful. I don't know if it's because it is a little bit slow, so to speak. It will be necessarily worth it, but definitely this will at least be a fun one to brew around and try in maybe a more casual game or in commander games, things like that. But I'm kind of excited about this card, actually, the Smile at Death. Okay, let's move on to a card that I'm actually even more excited about because this card seems sweet. We've got a new Mox, we've got the Mox Jasper, 0 mana, legendary artifact, at 1 mana of any color, activate only if you control a dragon. Boo, yeah, I know, but we're getting a lot of dragons in the set apparently, right? Let's hope so. And we actually already have some cheap dragons in standard. Um, we got the Shivan Devastator. I think that card is one to watch with this set because it works. It's just a very versatile card, an X cost card. You can play it on turn 2 and have the Mox Jasper come down, and then it gives you additional mana for any additional Shivan Devastators you play. So that's pretty good. So you can get the mana boost as early as turn 2 with this, or like hold up a removal spell, like a shock or something like that, on turn 2 with the Shivan Devastator. The 3-tree mascot also is a dragon. We have other changelings in standard that are legal as well. That's the cheapest one. So again, getting this on turn 2. Maybe there's some artifact synergies going on here too. With Drafna, there's some combos with Moxes where you can just like play it, return it, tap it for mana. If you can reduce the cost of Drafna's ability to return artifacts or make the Mox add an additional mana, you can kind of go infinite with that. So there's some infinite combo potential. And then I think it synergizes with some of the other cards I'm going to talk about later too. So I'll kind of mention it there. We'll just consider it there. But yeah, definitely an exciting card and not a card we've gotten in standard or Mox in standard for a while. So at least a playable one. And I feel like this one is going to be playable given the amount of dragons they're probably going to support in the set. So, and other combo potential, synergy potential as well. So certainly excited for the Mox Jasper. Let me know in the comments below if I'm overhyping it or underhyping it. I'm not really sure, but I always have to see the whole set. But I think this one is actually going to be pretty decent. Okay, next up we've got Shiko, Paragon of the Way. This is a 5 mana Jeskai colors here. So again, as we're looking at the cards, there generally there's going to be a multicolor theme here because Tarkir is a multicolor set or has been in the past with Jeskai and the other tribes. And this is the 3 color combination: blue, red, and white. So multicolor cards are going to feature in this set, and this is one of them, I think. So this is a dragon and a spirit. It's got flying, vigilance, 4/5, and when it enters, you exile target non-land card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard, copy it, and then cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So always a powerful effect when something says cast it without paying its mana cost. This can only do mana value 3 or less. But in older formats, there's some interesting cards. Those suspend cards that cost 0 that maybe you could do that with. Might be a bit too expensive, but what I'm thinking for standard is that you can blink this guy over and over again. Say your graveyard was filled with Guardians of Ghirapur or Charming Princes or another round, things that blink. This you can't really use clones because it's legendary unless the clone can cost 3 or less and make it non-legendary. But blink effects kind of work. If you had a bunch of these, you could play that, get the Guardian of Ghirapur back, blink the Shiko, comes back, and then in turn you get another thing to cast for free. You can kind of get a lot of value that way, and kind of just like recast your whole graveyard if you have a bunch of these blink effects in them, or with another round, kind of blink your whole team a bunch. Something like that could be kind of interesting. Yeah, we'll kind of see. Of course, if we get more blink effects, that kind of helps this out. It can also build up your storm count, which could be relevant in the set. I'm not really sure. There is a storm card that we have now, so we'll see if how relevant building up your storm is. Again, with the Mox, that is also relevant for a storm count, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But this card seems pretty powerful. I mean, 4/5 flying vigilance as it is, and then you're getting 3 mana value, an additional card, kind of like a Snapcaster Mage, but you get a 4/5 instead of a 2/1. So that's pretty good, right? I don't know. It seems decent to me. Seems like if you're just playing it for value, I think it could be pretty good too. And it's a dragon, so synergy's there. But one to watch and kind of see. It really depends on how good of the things you can bring back with it are. But overall, I think this card's pretty cool. Okay, next up we've got Sarkhan, who's back. The Dragon Ascendant. 2 mana for a 2/2 legendary human druid. And when it enters, you can behold a dragon. Behold a dragon. If you do, you create a treasure token. So that means beholding means you choose a dragon you control, you reveal one from your hand. So again, I don't know how hard this is going to be depending on how many dragons. Ship and Devastator, we've got Changelings. The card we just talked about, Shiko, is a dragon. There's going to be quite a few dragons here. And this works really well with dragons because it seems like most dragons tend to cost 4 mana or more, and creating a treasure token is pretty good. It also has the text: whenever a dragon you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and until end of turn, it becomes a dragon in addition to its other types, and it gains flying. So that's kind of nice too, right? If you would say you played this on 2, revealed Shivan Devastator, on turn 3, you play the Devastator for a 3/3 flyer, and then this also becomes a 3/3 flyer attack for 6 in the air. It's a pretty decent curve, right? You could find ways to blink this to get more treasure tokens, things like that. It kind of goes against the +1/+1 counters on it, but there could be something there maybe. But Leyline of Transformation is kind of interesting with a bunch of dragon synergies, especially with this card. It's not like super broken or anything, but something to keep in mind that we do this Leyline that can turn everything into a dragon. That if you played this, if you had Leyline, you named dragon, you played this on turn 2, you could behold itself, I believe, and get that, and then it would also trigger because it itself would be a dragon. Put a +1/+1 counter on it, and flying right away. Wouldn't have haste, but that would be pretty nice. 2 mana for a 3/3 flying and a treasure, and whenever any other creature comes into play, it gets +1/+1 on flying. So that's kind of interesting and neat, just to think about as well. This card seems good to me. I think it will, if there's a dragon deck, which looks like there most likely will be, this card will probably be a piece of it to kind of enable the mana ramp and also give you a nice threat that can attack in addition to your dragons. It itself becomes a dragon. So yeah, seems like a pretty cool Sarkhan card to me. All right, let's move on to the Barrensteppe Siege, which is 4 mana enchantment. And when it enters, you choose Abzan or Mardu. These sieges, I think, were in the last Tarkir set. We kind of had to choose Abzan here is at the beginning of your end step. You put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And then Mardu is at the beginning of your end step. If a creature died under your control this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature of their choice. So, interesting card here. I think it's very kind of a niche card. Like for 4 mana, it kind of feels like you're not quite getting enough. Although being able to choose between those two effects is kind of cool. I wish you could choose both. But the deck I'm thinking that this actually could be quite good in is sort of an aristocrats, like a black-white aristocrats style deck. There's sort of a bunch of max speed cards that we got in Aether Drift that are kind of in this deck that could be pretty good with this. Because the +1/+1 counter on each of creatures you control, you really want to play that in, say, like a token deck, which is could be just like good in a token deck, and you can just play that to buff your team. And there is like the Embalmed Ascendant here that creates tokens. There's some other token cards. Like when they die, they create tokens in black-white that you'd want to play in an aristocrat style deck, right? But then also we have some decent sacrifice outlets, the Zahur and the Gas Guzzler. There's the other 2 mana one that I'm blanking on the name. Bart, I believe, that can sacrifice anything. That works really well with the Mardu mode here, that if your opponent is playing a deck that has, say, like a bunch of big dinosaur creatures or something like that, you want to make them sacrifice their creatures, you have sacrifice outlets in your deck that could pretty easily enable that every turn, which is pretty powerful if you're sacrificing, say, a 1-drop that makes a token and they're sacrificing a bigger creature. That's a pretty powerful effect that you can do every turn, and almost just like lock your opponent out of the game from playing creatures if you have enough tokens. So I think this card is interesting. I don't know how powerful it actually is. 4 mana feels like a lot. I mean, 3 mana might be like too good, but it's something to keep in mind. And cool that it's kind of, I have a feeling this is going to be a cycle of different sieges, and so kind of look to see what the other cycles do. But this one seems kind of decent in this specific style of deck to me. Okay, next up we've got the Inevitable Defeat, which is 4 mana for red, white, and black. This spell can't be countered. It's an instant, and it says exile target non-land permanent. Its controller loses 3 life, and you gain 3 life. Kind of sweet with Ketrimos, the New Dawn, which wants you to target and exile your opponent's stuff to draw additional cards, right? And kind of could go in the same color scheme here. So potentially with that, this card just seems powerful to me on its own, to be honest. Can't be countered. You exile something, and you get a Lightning Helix. Like, Lightning Helix is worth 2 mana. Exiling anything is worth, I don't know, maybe 3 mana, and then can't be countered is a nice tack on too. So it seems like you're getting a pretty good deal here. Again, kind of thinking about the multicolored aspects of the set. There are some cards like Ancient Cornucopia, which can gain additional life for each of the spell's colors, right? So that could be something to consider if you're going like 5 color. Lila here counts for multicolor instants and sorceries that you can basically cast them again. It becomes plotted, so you can cast this twice, and it kind of curves into it if you're playing, say, a 4-color, 5-color deck. We'll see what kind of mana bases we get with this set. I have a feeling we'll probably get 3-colored triomes or of some kind, would be my guess. So it would be able to make 4 or 5-color decks maybe more possible in standard. I mean, there already are 5-color decks possible, but this could make it easier for the mana bases. We'll see with what lands we get, but this card seems pretty powerful to me, just as a removal spell. I mean, there's no kind of like blatant, like infinite combos I can think of with it, but it just seems like a pretty good card, and something to kind of keep in mind with the multicolor facet of the set. Speaking of multicolor, Narset, the Jeskai Waymaster, is a 3 mana 3/4 human monk legend, and at the beginning of your end step, you can discard your hand. If you do, draw cards equal to the number of spells you cast this turn. So again, I mentioned there's a Mox, which is a 0 mana spell, which could be interesting with this. And we actually just got a bunch of discard synergies in Aether Drift. The Marauding Mako, the Monument of Endurance, there's a bunch of other ones, which are in these colors. They're red, blue, mostly red, blue, kind of shark pirate themed stuff. So being able to discard your hand actually isn't that much of a downside when you have a bunch of cards that you kind of want to do that with. So I could see this card going into like a self-discard sort of style deck. There's like that Oculus deck that wants to bring it back. Maybe it could go in that kind of style deck. Maybe it just goes in a very aggressive deck with very cheap like burn spells, being able to draw a bunch of cards, like say if you play this, then the following turn you play just a bunch of bolt waves or burn at your opponent, uh, and you cast like 3 burn spells and you draw 3 cards, and because your hand is out. This could be kind of nice top end to that kind of deck to refill your hand. Kind of nice as plot cards too, because plot counts as casting the spell. But if you played this on, if you plotted like Cunning Coyote earlier in the game, and then you played this and you played the Cunning Coyote, that would count as an additional spell that was cast. So you draw an additional card during your end step. Could give it haste attack. So interesting, to think about. I think this card it's got powerful. You do have to build around it for sure. You can't just jam this in any deck, but it seems like it's doing a lot of things that Jeskai wants to do, which is probably be aggressive, have cheap mana costs, and play a bunch of spells. So it seems like a decent card to me. We'll have to see how it all plays out. Of course, the mana cost is kind of challenging. Again, we'll kind of see what kind of lands we get to make that easier. But yeah, definitely an interesting and cool Narset. Okay, next up we've got a storm card, folks. Stormscale Scion. 6 mana for a 4/4 dragon. Okay, dragon, sweet. Flying. And other dragons you control get +1/+1. Not great there, but then it has Storm. So you copy it for each spell cast before this turn. And copies become tokens. So even if you just had Storm of 1, this would be 6 mana for 2 5/5s, right? Because they pump each other, and it pump all your other dragons +2/+2. So that actually is pretty decent, even if you just get a Storm count of 1 with this. But you certainly could get more. Again, plot cards are a part of Standard now, and that is some easy way to kind of get a bunch of Storm in one turn. The Outcaster Trailblazer is kind of sweet with this because it plots, it kind of accelerates into it. You can draw additional cards with it for each of the dragons that come into play. So that has some nice synergy. I was thinking, like, how else? Like, okay, we got the Mox, right? So you can certainly use the Mox to increase your Storm count on the turn that you play this. So that's definitely something to consider. But like the Reenact the Crime, Beseech the Mirror loops also create quite a bit of Storm. So let's say you say you just discarded this for 0 mana, like with a looting effect on turn 4, and then you reenacted it back. That would give you 2 additional copy, because you casted 1 spell to cast this spell, so you get 2 of them back. But if you say you beseeched something into a Reenact the Crime, then that would be an additional spell. So there's some interesting loops that you could do with beseech to reenact into Stormscale Scion potentially. I don't know, might be a bit janky, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, maybe to create a bunch of Stormscale Scions on turn 4 or later. That could be one way of doing it. And again, the Mox could be another way. There's nothing besides the Mox and the Outcaster Trailblazer. There's no like blatant rituals I can really think of in Standard. Let me know in the comments below. Maybe there's some other cards that synergize with this. I'm sure there probably are. But all the plot cards are kind of sweet too. And there's that 0 mana, like 0/0 that you could use to increase Storm count in Standard now too. So there are some cheap free spells. But yeah, definitely exciting, and certainly a card I'm going to be brewing around and thinking about how to break for sure for Standard. Even if it's bad, I'm going to do it anyways. So stick to the channel for that if you want to see some jank. But also, this card could be good. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, let me know in the comments below about this one. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting ways to use it. Okay, and then one more card here, and then some more speculation from Maro's spoiler blog that I want to talk about. Just a few things there, but we got Rally the Monastery. So this is an uncommon. 4 mana, but it costs 2 less if you cast another spell this turn. So again, remember we got the Mox and free spells and plot and stuff like that. Like the Slick Shot Show Off is another plot card. So choose one. Create 2 1/1 white monk creature tokens with prowess. Ooh, that's pretty good. Up to 2 creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. That's all right. And then destroy target creature power 4 or greater. That could be pretty good depending on the situation. If there's like a Shelly or something that you really need to get rid of, a big creature, a blocker. This card could be quite efficient to remove that. So a versatile card. I would say it's not very good if you're just casting it for 4 mana, but for 2 mana, actually quite good, I would say. Especially the first mode, getting 2 monks for 2 mana at instant speed that have prowess is quite good. A going rate for like 2 mana for 2 1/1s, or for 2 1/1s is 2 mana basically, but these also have prowess. And this card also enables prowess because it's an instant itself. So I think this could go really well in like a prowess style, maybe Jeskai or just red white kind of deck here with like swift spears and slick shot show offs. Because again, plot is kind of nice with this, crash throughs, things like that. That you're just trying to play a bunch of spells. I mean, if you go like turn 1 swift spear, turn 2 plot slick shot show off, turn 3 play the show off, and then play this, right? You're triggering the swift spear and the show off their prowess abilities essentially with this card, and then you could also pump them up if you want to remove a creature, create more prowesses, creatures, play things like crash through the following turn, pump everything. So I think this fits really well in that kind of deck. Maybe there's some other uses for it. Pumping up creatures can be good too, things like that. So seems like a pretty sweet card to me, and wouldn't be surprised if it saw some play in constructed prowess decks. Okay, and then last up we got some, this is just a few things from Morrow's spoiler. There's some interesting stuff in there. I didn't include everything, obviously, just a few things that kind of stood out to me that I was kind of thinking about. And obviously, I have to see what the cards are at, but so he gave some hints as to some stuff that's written on some of the cards in the set. One of them is then if creatures you control have total toughness 20 or greater, and then also whenever you cast a turtle spell, untap this creature. Both of those hints made me think about the turtle deck that I adore, that I've been playing on this channel, which, if you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out. I love that deck for some reason. It's a pet deck, so to speak. Just a fan of turtles in general, and we got the Aegis turtle, which is a freaking amazing 1-drop, which could certainly make it easy to get 20 plus toughness or a cheap turtle spell. And we'll see what that is, how good that is to untap the creature that I was talking about. But there's some enablers I think for those effects, and maybe there's like a toughness matters theme in this set, which would be pretty cool as well. And then another one that stood out to me was as long as there are 3 or more different kinds of counters among creatures you control. So maybe that's like one of the themes of the set is like different types of counters. We'll see. Obviously, there's +1/+1 counters, and those are like the most common. There's a ton of cards in Standard and Magic in general that have those. But there's actually quite a bit. I was kind of looking through different types of counters. There's the oral counters. The Reluctant Role Model makes Flying Lifelink and +1/+1 counters. Twitching Doll has nesting counters, I believe. Sleep Curse Fae has the stun counters and incubation counters for the Drake Hatcher. So some cheap ways. I was looking at just like cheap ways to make different types of counters, and there are quite a few. So if that effect is good, whatever it says after this, I think there's ways to enable it already in Standard that could be decent. But yeah, we'll have to see kind of what comes from these cards. And let me know in the comments below how you're feeling about Dragonstorm Tarkir. The set seems pretty cool to me so far. I really love the kind of classic Magic Dragon set theme. Universes Beyond looking kind of cool too, to be honest. The Final Fantasy, at least so far, seems cool. But this one I think is like really the bread and butter of what Magic needs to be, and what I hope most sets are. So it seems cool so far, and excited for the flavor. The power level seems pretty decent so far, and the combo potential, which is what I care about as well. So let me know what you think about the set in the comments below. Any synergies or interesting decks you're wanting to build with these cards that are coming out. Any speculation about what could be in the set as well. I always love to hear stuff like that. Enjoy the spoiler season. So yeah, it's coming up on the channel. We've got some more spoiler videos as the cards get revealed this next week. I'm going to be talking about sweet combos with all those new cards, synergies, things like that. So stick to the channel for that. And then, of course, gameplay with all the wacky combo decks that I can think of with all the new cards from Tarkir Dragonstorm. So thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate you. All the support for the channel means a ton to me. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.